the 14 News Podcast.
So, welcome to the 14 News Podcast, everyone. We've got some special guests, and as I mentioned before, a few weeks back, we're going to talk about an investigation that we did at Halloween at the Market Vaults in Scarborough. So, welcome, Leah and Pamela.
Hi.
Hi.
How are you both? How was your Christmas and New Year?
Same old. It was all right. Thanks. Yeah, not bad.
I got to see family, so that was good.
And just to say, Pamela's not very well. She's got this flu, so I imagine a bit of brain fog as well. Is that right, Pamela?
Just a bit.
Yeah.
Probably not that much more than normal.
Well, thank you for joining us. So we went into this historic Market Vaults, and for regular listeners, people will know that Liz does tours. She does the Black Widow tours in Scarborough. And so we joined her on a tour, and we ended up in the vaults for a special Halloween special, where we did an investigation, and it was an interesting night. I've never done one with the public before. Normally quite private. So that was, although we get asked all the time, so it was a little different. But it was it was a really interesting experience to get down there. Pumpkin Cat is probably going to really annoy everyone as normal on this. But listeners are used to that. So if you hear purrs, it's not my tummy, it's Pumpkin, or it could be my tummy as well. So I just want to, first of all, obviously Pamela's part of my team, and as well, and we do investigations together, and sometimes we do them by ourselves and stuff. But one thing I've never asked Pamela, which I'd like to do on air, because I think it'd be interesting, is when you're doing something, say you're doing a haunting, and you're going into the house, what do you do to kind of prepare before you go and everything?
Well, pretty much the same as we did for the investigation for the Market Vaults. It's about protection. So it's about connecting with those that I work with from what you would call the higher side of life, spirit side of life, my team, those that have worked with me for a long time, to ask that I'm protected from all things seen and unseen, all of that kind of stuff, so that I have my own protection around me. And I will ask also for the group that I'm with. But if I'm going into a property, then I myself need to be safe, because it would be no good, would it, if absolutely everybody fell apart in the same venue.
Yeah. And I think with what we would do,
ask for that protection.
Sorry,
and maintain that. Sorry, James.
Go ahead, Pamela. Sorry, I thought you'd stopped because you disappeared, but no, you go ahead.
So you ask for protection. It's basically part of your practice for essentially spiritual development, is making sure that is part of your routine. We don't know who we're opening the door to. We don't know who's going to come in from the higher side of life. Because when we transition, we don't suddenly grow wings and a halo. We don't suddenly become angelic and become, devout and amazing and angelic and all of those kinds of things. We are what we are. The moment that we pass is what we are. And our learning continues. Maybe, you weren't always the best you could be while you're on the airplane. That's what you're going to be when you go over.
Yeah. And I guess when we're doing a public,
protection from that.
I guess when we're doing a public one as well, you don't know who the other people's intent and everything as well, who's on the group, and what their experience is, or what they're hoping, or even potentially accepting in.
Absolutely, because what they're bringing.
Yeah.
You don't know what you're bringing. You don't know what they're bringing. This is something that I know we've talked about it before, but you will watch lots of people who think that using divination from the higher side of life, that's going to be fine, because you think that if you're an okay person, you're only going to get good people. Well, that's not always the case, and so self-protection is really, really important, really significant.
Yeah, it's the same in relationships, isn't it? You think you're a good person, you potentially expect that, and you don't. You get people that sometimes want to exploit you, and it's the same with all this stuff as well. If you open that door and you let someone in your house, for want of a better analogy, then you're open to whatever that is, and they often pretend to be very lovely at first to get through the door. So
yes, absolutely. And a lot of this, I think with the spiritual pathway though as well, is that people often don't realize how little they know until they get a lot further on, and you know, there's a lot of guidance that's needed, especially from people who have experienced things that are until you've had that experience, then you don't know why you need that level of protection. And I think it's really important for those who are the beginners or in their early stages of development, actually respect their elders, that if they're saying we don't do that and this is why we don't do it, that they actually trust that, because the outcome or negative energies that they can't shake, all of that kind of feeling is something that, you know, that's when you come back to somebody like us to sort of say, oops, can you fix this?
Yeah, and I think there's a bit of a misconception that people, they watch a couple of TV shows and suddenly think that they kind of know what they're doing a lot of the time.
There is that, and especially in my world as well. So in the spiritual realm, shall we say, there are lots of people. It's quite a regular phenomena, is that people will come into maybe 6-week, 12-week awareness course, and at the end of that time they're preparing their business cards. They think that they know everything, and that they're out there to work. It's years and years and years of practice and experience and all that kind of stuff, and there has to be a degree of honesty about, I've only been doing this 6 weeks, 6 months, 6 years. It doesn't matter what it is, but at least be honest about it, to understand where you are at on your journey as well.
Yeah, definitely. And I was chatting with someone the other day who's a very experienced investigator about how when we do paranormal investigations and you do get some responses, there are some people that automatically think they're special because they're getting the responses, and if you're on the wrong side of kind of narcissism, you can start feeling like you're specially chosen and stuff like that, rather than it being you've just given it attention. And it's really important to stay, you know, we believe, to stay really grounded, and because we don't even if we're getting evidence of something, we don't know what we're dealing with. We just know it's giving us that evidence.
Absolutely. But you could also be working with somebody who may be in their very, very early stages of curiosity about this kind of work, and they might be incredible or incredibly attuned to the spirit world. They just might not know it yet. They just might have all kinds of vibes going on, and they may be amazing. They may be absolutely amazing, and they can be awoken on their sort of like pathway through doing this, and that's powerful. And that's when they also need guidance, reassurance, and support.
Yeah. And Liah, your first time, was it doing a natural investigation? Is that right?
Yeah, I've never done an investigation before. Obviously, I've taken people around town and I've done a lot of research on the darker history, not just paranormal activity, but, you know, my tour isn't just a ghost tour per se. It is a dark tales tour. So I look at the local folklore and the darker history of the town, and you know, and some of the things, particularly the murders. It's not just about the gruesome side of it. It's remembering the people who it happened to, and giving them some kind of continuity is the wrong word, giving them a degree of remembrance that it's not about how they died exactly as giving them a lasting legacy, even if it is in local folklore, a sort of respect of what happened to them, and as well as the dark history that people seem to enjoy a lot these days. True crime is incredibly popular, so it kind of goes along with the paranormal stuff. And a lot of the stories that I've researched, because there's nothing that I've made up. I can't guarantee that somebody 100 years ago didn't make something up, but in all the books that I've looked at, everything in there is either been told to me by a guest on the tour or somebody local, or it's in a book, and most of it I've been able to verify that the people involved at least did exist, of one way or another. But I've never actually gone and done a paranormal investigation. It just, I contacted you, I can't remember what it was, probably springtime last year, with this idea that maybe we should get together and do a collaboration. And it had been brought to my attention before about the market vaults. And I thought, it'd be a great idea. So I contacted the vaults, and you were on board, they were on board, and so it happened. And it was really interesting. It was fun, as far as being locked in a dark room can be fun. But there was a little bit of noise that we had to deal with as well, which wasn't especially helpful. But
that was we potentially could have had more evidence if that wasn't occurred. But when we did a visit, didn't we? And we were guaranteed that you couldn't hear the band, and you could hear a band upstairs. So one of the best things on the investigations is you hear like things in the distance that can't be explained. But I think that covered a lot of that up. But
something in Elton John music was definitely not something that couldn't be explained.
No, and because we started off in a circle and we were playing, part of the history is there was a monastery nearby, and Cistercian monks, and we played some of that old chanting music. And then maybe Elton John, kind of overrode that. It wasn't Elton John himself, just to say.
No,
he wasn't playing a Scarborough market hall.
Impersonating all the music of, but
So that did kind of dampen the atmosphere a little bit. But what do you want to? So what I do normally when I'm on my own, or not on my own, but with my group when I'm doing a site, is I sit and meditate for a while in that space. But obviously you can't really do that in a public space. But I like to just get a feel. What kind of feelings did you both have going in?
For me, whenever I visited, I don't know whether it's just because it's dingy down there, whether it's a bit damp, there is a sort of vague musty smell underground that I don't particularly like it down there. And when you and I went to visit, there was one spot we were stood in talking to the assistant manager, and we were both a bit like, oh, don't like this bit. Oddly enough, when we were in there in the dark, it felt less creepy. There was something almost cozy about parts of it, which it had lost that chill in a way that we found during the daytime, but we didn't necessarily find, at least at the beginning in parts of the area, I didn't find as creepy as I have done when I've been down there when there's been the public walking around shopping, that struck me as a little curious that, I guess things move around, atmosphere changes, and
I know Pamela's a very I'm not speaking for her because I'll let Pamela jump in, but I know Pamela's a very strong believer that you don't have to do investigations on the dark. But they're also, we were in a wooded area recently where when it becomes dark it does shift to something else, but there are spaces where you do get more stuff during the daytime and the nighttime is peaceful. Do you want to jump in there, Pamela?
Well, yeah, but I'll answer your first bit first though, really, because the extra part for me is that we were going to do an investigation. So as much as anything, for me, it's also about the responsibility for the people that we're working with. It's protecting them and making sure that that I've done protection stuff work for myself, but also for them to keep, whatever we can do, which would in some ways almost be a conflict, really, because you're asking for people to stay safe and be protected. And by definition, does that actually preclude some of the activity from going on? Because you've got, let's say, a force field around you that's kind of like, yeah, you're not doing me any harm, as it were. Or is that also equally a challenge to those from the spirit side that actually want to prove how powerful they are? Because that's also a truth. Is why wouldn't it be? Well, yeah, I suppose you have to remember, of all of the beings that have ever lived throughout life, who wanted to be the biggest and the hardest and could fight the hardest and be the most powerful. You have exactly that same sort of like belief system and principle potentially once you pass over as you ever do on the earth plane. So it's like, who are you bumping into? What's their threat? What are they wanting to achieve? What just what level of power do they want to assert? How much do they want to demonstrate? Whatever, because some of the things that we can do would seem pretty minor. Can you imagine if we were going up against, I don't know, let's pick somebody at random, Attila the Hun? Is he going to want to move a cat's ball along a floor just to prove that he's still alive? No, he isn't. He's going to want to come out all guns blazing, isn't he? I'm using that as a bit of a really visible analogy. Do you get what I mean? So you don't know who's coming in. You also don't know, like you say, with the people that's coming on, who they're drawing towards them. Because what we have to remember is that all of those people that attended, for some, maybe all, because of their curiosity, may well have had their own family who were drawing them to come to that experience, who wanted to draw close to them to let them know that they were still around, and all of those kinds of stuff that I do on a regular basis. In terms of communication between those who were on the earth plane and those who've moved on. So everybody that was there may well have had a family member who was trying to get in touch with them, not necessarily to come and do strange, weird stuff.
Yeah.
And all of that stuff happens while we're doing what we're doing.
Yeah, years ago, probably about 20 years ago now, I investigated the Red Lion in Pontefract, and there was a lady on the team, and she just had to exclude herself because whatever was with her started interfering with everything. So whenever she came to the table, things were moving around, and then so we were just getting false readings. So she had to eventually just stand at the side of the room and not be involved and just observe. So yeah, that reinforces what you were saying. So we started off doing the chants, and then we did a bit of a safety tour, didn't we? Because it is, I always say it is like fishing, where most people go fishing or surfing, every day and nothing happens, but you respect the sea, you respect the water, and then you're safe. But you start mucking about, you can get in trouble quite quickly. So we did that talk about respecting, not consenting to anything, about not consenting to being touched or all those type of things, or allowing anything in. And then we kind of split into two groups, didn't we?
We did.
And could you want to, because I didn't see any of what you were doing other than in the distance. Do you want to tell me kind of what you told them and what you were doing and involved in?
To be fair, I tried to not give too much direction because I didn't want to influence anyone.
Yeah.
I think what I learned at the end, so I'm going to go to the end and then come back to that, if you kind of, and I'll explain in a minute. Excuse me, is because when we started off with, let's say, team 1 and team 2,
yeah,
you chose an area of the market that you then didn't stay in when I then had team 2 and you had team 1.
Yeah.
So that in its own way influenced the direction that we moved around the market. So avenues were blocked then the second time for us. So my comparison is more awkward. So I took notes. So the way that I do things on an investigation like this is that I record what's picked up. So my group 1 I don't know whether it will show you this or not. So my group one's list of stuff is this long, but my group two's list, I don't think it's going to show it, is really quite short.
Right.
Because I tried to label it as to which shop we were outside of, so that then we could marry that up later on.
Yeah.
And I didn't particularly want to influence my group, but there was an awful lot that they felt in terms of presence. And if I was to sit and then, I think I'd need to go back into the market to like X marks the spot where we felt actually group one felt this and group two felt that. That's what I really need to do again, to go back. But pretty much everybody felt something, but not everybody felt the same thing.
Okay. So
in various places, you know, and there were a couple of people that could hear noise from above, and a tapping in response to questions. So, you know, there were all kinds of things. There were things that I saw myself, but I wanted to give these guys that I was with the opportunity to do that for themselves. But where we felt our most powerful energy in the first kind of like round was where you then went into that shop for your second group.
Yeah.
So that's where we felt our most powerful stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we, for example, group one, what did they see? They saw a shadow passing when we were in the circle. So when you were actually doing the meditation and the music, there was a shadow past us. One person felt their face being touched. There noticeable change in temperature outside a particular shop. They were very conscious of what they felt physically. So whether they felt cold, cobwebs, things like that. Being watched was quite significant.
Right.
On a number of occasions. They also could see shimmering as well. A sickly feeling, which is quite normal to have that experience as well. And it was interesting because outside one of the shops that was on the outside edge of the market, they could hear voices inside, so they weren't sure whether the radio was on.
Right.
But because of the time of night, it was highly unlikely. Breath on the face, cold down just one part of the body and not the other part of the body. Again, similar with the second group, that really cold feeling. We were all dressed for the night. We just walked, hadn't we, all through Scarborough. We were all dressed for being warm and all of that kind of stuff. But, you know, they were really, really cold. And there was one shop that one member of the second group didn't want to go near to, and another shop where somebody felt very much pulled towards it. So those are the sort of like general. There wasn't nothing.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? There was something.
Yeah. And some of those will be environmental factors, and then some are a bit more hard to explain, aren't they? Or could be caused by environmental factors, I should say.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we've always got to be aware of priming as well with people that they're expecting. And I think some of them, one of the groups, a small group within the group, had primed themselves to have the result that they already expected.
They did. Yeah, absolutely.
Which I thought was interesting. Liah, what about you? Because you kind of went between groups as well.
Yeah, I stayed with your group to begin with, and then the second time round, I came in the room with yourself and Matt, but then I kind of went and had a wander and looked at what other people were doing as well. Partly because I was interested, but also because I it was my idea, so I felt like slightly responsible for the group, and I wanted to sort of check on everybody and make sure it was all going right, and check when the people were leaving, because obviously we'd set up at the beginning with the security guard that if anyone wanted to go or needed to leave because it was getting late at night, that they would sign out. So I was kind of checking on that as well. The first group, when we stood outside that shop, see, for me, I was quite warm all night. I was not cold at any point, but there was a couple of cold spots, I would say, particularly at that shop that we decided to stand in front of. And I think Matt and I were the only two that heard it, but there was an odd tapping sound that we tried to write off, but we couldn't find the reason for. And I could also feel a draft in that spot, but we couldn't pin down where it was coming from. So we couldn't work out why it was colder in that area, should I say.
Yeah.
And then there was the whole cat ball thing. But for me, that was the only bit that kind of struck me. I agree that there was a group within the group that felt something that they kind of primed themselves to do, because others in that area, hello Pumpkin Cat.
Yes, it's joined on the screen.
On screen. The others in that group at that moment didn't feel what they were feeling, but it's individual as well. So
that's not to say they weren't experiencing
not to say they weren't experiencing something and we just didn't. But for me, the cat ball was the most curious thing, and we couldn't. Everybody swore that it wasn't them, and I can't see how it was, because it had moved in a way that we would have heard it move.
Matt said he put it somewhere.
Switched off.
Right. And because I asked him as well, like, could it have rolled? And, because that's the obvious explanation. He's like, definitely not. And Matt's a skeptic on the whole. So I think he was really, quite taken aback.
It wouldn't have been quite so accurate to where it had gone. It was literally dead opposite where it had been placed.
Right.
And it had to roll over bumps and lumps to get to that place.
Right.
And it was switched off when we got to it. So unless somebody just did it on purpose and decided not to tell us,
which is a potential. Yeah.
Which is potential, but it was definitely a curious thing that the cat ball was literally moved from one side of the road to the other.
Yeah. And Lee, do you want to just tell, because we said that some people are primed, do you want to just tell the kind of ghost story that is in the market vaults?
It's a local friar, as far as I remember anyway. There's a local friar from the friary, which is now, I believe, the school, I think.
Private school, yeah. Which has that to be.
It does, doesn't it? Yeah. It'd be nice to go in the school, actually. But he apparently likes a bit of a tipple and would wander through what is now the market vault on his way to and from the local tavern to the friary, and is often referred to locally as the drunk monk. People have seen the figure, or I don't know, smelt a bit of booze as well, smelt the whiskey. If it was, I mean, the market told us that it had been used as a whiskey store at some point.
Yeah.
When I did the research, I actually couldn't find that. I found it had been used for other things, fish in particular.
Right.
We didn't get any fishy smells for sure.
No.
But if it had been used as a whiskey store, that could potentially explain the occasional whiff.
Yeah.
Linger, but
because I brought some whiskey as a trigger.
You did, yes.
And then at one point, myself and another member smelt whiskey very, very strong, like as if it was under our nose. And I even looked around and said, have I brought it to this area? And I hadn't. I'd left it in the other room. Okay. So that was really interesting. And that was not long after some other bits and bobs that occurred there with our group. But what we got was very different to the story. So it was completely polar opposites to that. So to just tell everyone kind of my experience, there was Matt's partner and my partner were stood kind of towards the right of where I was stood, and we were doing just some EVPs, which we didn't get anything in. If we did, it would be a struggle anyway because of what was going on upstairs. Looking for like EMF readings, which will go in on and off quite frequently. But again, it's a very old building. Can't definitely say it's paranormal. But while that's occurring, and again, it could be pareidolia. I was like, oh, there's someone else has joined us, but I didn't recognize them. They were like it was a woman who was tiny. Like she didn't have dwarfism, but she was a very, very short, fully grown adult woman, and stood next to our partners. And then when I looked again, obviously I was like, oh, there couldn't have been someone stood there, because that's where there was merchandise from the shops. Although in my eyes, I'd clearly seen someone. And then moments after that occurred, there was a female voice right behind that group, that myself and both our partners, who were very, down to earth, and if they say they heard it too, I really believe them. And that was really clear over there, like seconds after I saw that person, who was definitely not a friar, but it was, that was really interesting for me, that one.
And there were no mannequins in that area either, because there are shops down there and there are mannequins in various places, and there were none in that alley, that little section of street, that there were no mannequins. Because when you said, I looked round to see if there was a shadow of a mannequin, and there literally wasn't. There was boxes of books and toys in a cabinet and things like that, but there was nothing human shaped.
And at the time, I saw her clear as day. It was, I say, dark hair, very slim, maybe like late 20s, tiny woman. So yeah, that. But the biggest thing is something that was just for me, in that I'd packed my bag, and because it was a public thing, I was really, making sure that everything was there, everything that had brand new batteries in, and all this, because, and then when I got there, one of the things that I bought especially for the event wasn't even in my bag, even though I double checked it, and the batteries weren't in my my recorder, even though I'd checked and put new batteries in, and I even came home and like the empty packet of the batteries was there, but there was no new batteries in. But no one can obviously understand that other than me. Yeah. So yeah, that was the first fascinating thing. But Pamela, what's your views on that? Obviously, something very different to what the ghost story is.
I think I would have liked. I think because we did this as a first investigation, and we did it in the two teams because we were quite a large group. I obviously didn't have the experience of working with you guys with any of the equipment as well, just to see what would happen. We didn't all come together because time just flew.
I think that was on me as well, Pamela. I like a kid in a candy shop, got researching paranormal activity, and we're getting some, and then I was like, oh, it's been 10 minutes, and then it's like, oh, everyone's gone. It's been actually.
Well, yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong, James. There is some of that, because we did agree that we would both go around the market in opposite directions, but you chose a spot and stayed in one, which meant we couldn't compare. And having comparison, which I've done on previous investigations in a market, is having that other team and seeing what the experience in a similar spot is. I can be very, very good confirmation of something that's going on there, because everybody's feeling the same thing. Because then you can look into all of the other factors of, is there a vent down here? Is there some kind of something under the stone floors that could have given us all of that same feeling? Whatever, you know what you're looking for, then you know what you need to eliminate. And so we kind of didn't have that. I only had it like I say, almost in my two separate teams, but then we couldn't go the same way. So we couldn't repeat the run, as it were. So I couldn't get that same sort of validation or verification. Because I would love to do more of the work with EVP and all of that kind of stuff, because of how much I frazzle any kind of like computer system. That's why I just had to move now, because of me affecting computers and how they work and all of those kinds of things, because we don't know how much we or any of the people that are coming on the investigations, how much they themselves are going to influence the electronics. So I think there are some things that almost need to be done as a rundown. And even if it's, can person X bring the batteries, can person Y bring so-and-so, can so-and-so carry somebody else? Do you know what I mean? I think some things could be done differently in terms of planning. Once you find out that this happens, right, okay, can you all bring this? Can you all bring something else? Do you get what I mean? So that we put something in place for future sort of like tests as well, to see what's possible. Because it will be different every time. And
different
who comes on the investigation, it's different for what they expect to have manifest?
Yeah.
Are they manifesting that themselves because of the power of thought? All of those kinds of things.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And I think I always say as well, it's the person, you know, when we're doing investigations, it doesn't matter what equipment you've got, it's the people using it. And you can do investigations with no equipment as well, and it's, you know, equally as good. And a good example of that, we did one and we all heard a female voice. And from the direction that the voice was in, there was a camera on that spot, and that camera didn't pick it up. But the one camera that Matt was holding, because he was connected to it, picked it up. But then we didn't have permission to be there. We did, but the person didn't get permission that they were meant to. They just told us we had permission, so we could never use the footage, which is a shame. But then, if we had permission and could share it, would we have got it? That's.
But then I suppose how I would add something else extra into that as well is because of my experience in let's say the spiritual development. I've sat through a number of trance sessions in churches that have been done by different mediums of different, not just abilities, because it's not really the ability. Again, it's the same influence by who you've got sat in the group, who's in the audience, who's in the congregation, what are they offering, what health and wellness position is the spiritual medium in, as well as to what they can bring through. But what I would say is, you see, I don't know whether you've seen Transfiguration. So when you watch Transfiguration of a medium who sat in front of you, not everybody sees the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah, we've had investigations where we've all heard something, and every person, we because what we do as well when we're doing it really just as a group rather than a public one is like, right, before you say what you've heard, let's write it down, and then we compare it so that we're not being influenced. And sometimes we all hear exactly the same thing, you know, and we were out in the woods and we heard bells recently, and we both heard bells. But we've done ones where someone heard a man, another person heard a woman saying help me, and another person heard a baby screaming. So very, very different sounds, but we all heard something very clearly, which shows that it maybe is more to do with the consciousness than an actual sound.
It could also be audio variation, because did you ever have that thing where you can test your hearing and they say a word at a different pitch and it's the same word, but it sounds different at different pitches, and other people, depending on their hearing range and their age group, actually hear a different word to the one that you heard. It's really odd that audio. Yeah. I've had a lot of hearing tests and things, and I'm aware that audio can be quite different for different people. So sometimes maybe some of that is a variant in your own audio perception.
Definitely as well. Yeah, definitely. And we also have it where we hear nothing, and then we run a tape back, and then there's someone chatting away on it that wasn't there. So even that's picking stuff up as well, which is amazing when that happens, but very rare. And or if you do, you get something that is just like a garbled noise that people try and interpret, but you can't. But yeah, sometimes you have a very, very clear voice that's amazing.
But I'll just kind of add into that though, is that how much in terms of my spiritual reading, how much the spirit world themselves have loved learning how to work with electronics.
Yeah.
So white noise and EVP and all of those kinds of things, and the ability to influence televisions and computers and things like that is something that the spirit world themselves absolutely love doing. And equally, they will nurture us to create the next things that we create because they're ahead of us and they know what's coming, and they've got the opportunity to plant the seeds for us for our development of new technology. So that's also significant. And equally, I'll come back to almost the same point is as well, if they want to play with us, they will.
Yeah.
They'll find it fun.
Yeah, yeah. And there seems to be, over investigations we've done, there's energy lulls and highs and peaks and troughs, and there's sometimes it's about that time that you're there as well. And sometimes you can hit a hot spot, and other times it's pretty cold, and maybe that's to do with levels of energy in the atmosphere and environment as well.
Yeah, and as we've said before, it depends what people are bringing with them. We may have had some people that came with us that night that were nervous, afraid, worried, and had their own barriers up, and that in itself can work because they don't want anything to happen.
Right.
And then you'll get the others that actually would like the devil incarnate to appear.
Yeah, he was busy that night, thankfully.
He was standing like Elton John coming through the roof.
It was a really interesting building though, just to be there with the history and aesthetically it looks really good as well. What would you both like to do if we were to go there again?
I would be interested in going there again. Yeah, perhaps with a smaller group. I mean, I ended up with, because we put it up for 20 people. I know there was a party that didn't stay for the investigation for their own personal reasons, but I think we ended up where there was about 15 guests plus us. So in total, there was around 20 people. So it was quite big. So maybe a smaller single group of people, or as you know, two groups, and then go just choose two spots like Pamela said, and go back and each group see what they got in each of those two spots rather than move around in the way that we were doing. But it was it didn't help that the security guard kept walking around either, because I think
No.
a couple of times we did ask him to stay put, but there was a couple of times where people jumped and looked round thinking that there was a shadow, and I could see where he was going because I was stood facing him, so I could see that he was causing some of the shadow.
Yeah, at one point I was like, I really feel like I'm being watched, and then I looked and there was a guy, the security guard, watching me. I was like, there you go.
A couple of times I'd look down one of the corridors and he'd be there walking by looking at his phone. Like, you're just throwing things off. But anyway.
I think he found it interesting, didn't he? But it wasn't helpful.
Yeah, no, it was curious, but yeah, it wasn't really helping matters.
No, he should have just joined us. That would have been easier.
Really, yeah.
Yeah, I think I would have the same. I'd do a smaller group, but what I would do is I would collate the information that we got from the first time around, from the notes that my guys took. I think we could do a planned route around the market for some of us to know what we were potentially expecting, but the rest of the group not.
Yeah.
Have the equipment and things with us as well, and go to, you know, point X and then point Y, and then see what's picked up with the group and with cameras and everything else that you've got for people to see and interact with, and all of those kinds of things as well. And maybe, like I said, maybe plant some more movable objects so that we could see whether anything is moved between us setting off from wherever we set off as a group. And I would do it because we would know what we were looking for in particular spaces, or where the hotspots were. But to see whether what we got was verified, different, that kind of stuff. That's how I would do it. But with a smaller group where it would be only us that knew what we were kind of expecting.
Yeah. I think we do have a slight disadvantage in the drunk monk, as it were, is quite a well-known local ghost story. So people, especially local people, are going to come with that preconception that they might see a drunk fire staggering around. But as you said, you know, that's not what happened to the group anyway. That's not the messages that we got. But it would be nice as well to go back, because when you and I visited, we didn't really know what we're looking for. We just kind of went in and talked to the market. But now we've been in there and we know which spots have more activity. It would be interesting if we went back in the day and actually looked to see if we could verify some of those things before we go down there to debunk anything, before we try and pick up anything else. You know, where was that draft coming from? We couldn't see it in the dark, but maybe in daylight we would found an air vent. You know, it would be interesting to debunk things before we go back in and try and pick up more information. I would definitely, the market would be happy for us to go back as well. So it would be interesting to do it.
It'd be really good for us to go just as a really small team and do another investigation as well one night and see, because I imagine wouldn't it be wonderful if I saw a woman there, and then I said to Pamela, she might not have seen it, she might have had a back to it, but I say, are you picking something up? And she matched exactly what I had. That would have been incredible. And I think knowing that stuff moves, to draw circles in chalk around it, so we can even measure distance that's moved and that type of thing. That'd be really cool.
Yeah, I wish we
Absolutely.
could have, because there were so many people down there and people were walking around. It is hard to really verify whether that cat ball moved by itself or not. But I mean, it didn't just move a couple of centimeters. It moved about 1.5 meters. It moved from one side of the alley to the other, which was, interesting and turned off. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's I love it when stuff like that happens, but it's frustrating because we can't definitely say
no,
that, which is on most investigations, that was paranormal. But for us at the moment, it's one of those, it could have been, and that makes it still very exciting and intriguing.
yeah.
Lovely.
It adds to the planning, though. It does add to the planning, doesn't it, for future events and
Yeah.
for what you learn from one and how to configure others.
Yeah, definitely. And I think the biggest thing, because I wanted to get everyone together and do a rundown afterwards about everything we've got and compare notes, is to keep an eye on my watch and not get carried away and be very ADHD and have time blindness. And be like, I would have carried on to 4 a.m. the way I was going and just realised everyone had gone.
I started to realize people were leaving and I was like, what time is it? And I realized it was actually already gone 11 and we'd only booked it till 11 o'clock. So
Yeah. Yeah, and I had loads of extra stuff that I was going to do with the group at the end as well that we didn't get a chance to, but that's my own overexcited fault. I know, Pamela, you were exhausted because you weren't that well anyway to begin with, were you?
Well, I don't know. And I think it was like you, I was carrying all of the things that I needed
Yeah.
for the evening, but I probably could have done to have carried them in a different bag or something, because I don't think I'd fully grasped just how far around Scarborough we would be walking first.
okay.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I would potentially have just met you at the market.
It was really wonderful for me, who does some, ghost tours for, little charities and stuff, not charging, but people, it's always donation to see a professional do it as well, and how different it was. It was really good. I really enjoyed it. Seeing the stories told, the same stories with the same information, just told in a different way. That was really cool. So where can people, before we wrap it up, so both of you have stuff that you do. Do you want to let everyone know kind of where they can get in touch, what you do, how they can get in touch with you, and what are your plans for 2026?
You want to go first, Pamela?
No, it's okay. I just need to process mine. Go on, Liah.
All right, okay. So I will be continuing the ghost tours as usual. The winter route will begin again after the snow has gone. I will start back at the February half term. I do take a break in January. And then we'll run throughout the summer. The summer route runs from end of May through to September, where we have a nice little agreement with the Central Tramway, and they give us access to the tram at a discount rate, so we can go up that way round. Otherwise, it is up Eastborough, which is a little bit of a hill.
Yeah.
If you're in Scarborough, it's hilly.
Yeah.
Not really much you can do about it. But the tours will keep running. It's most Saturdays, and over the school holidays in the summer, it will be Fridays as well. I'm also doing a bit of more writing. I'm hoping, I can't really say anything at the moment because it's not really fixed, but there is another potential collaboration with a podcast for my fiction and voiceover work.
Fantastic.
Potential. And there is a couple of my stories already out on the Haunted UK Fiction podcast under my name. And that is about me. And then the day job to pay the mortgage. That's my year planned.
And where can people book on your tours?
You can book either through my website on the link, which is blackwidowtours.co.uk, or you can use one of the booking engines like Viator or Get Your Guide. Both of them have my tour for sale.
So fantastic, yeah. And if you're not from Scarborough, it's definitely, come down. It's a beautiful town, loads of history, and you'll have a great night. You can go to that and then go to a pub afterwards. One of the pubs on the tour, yeah.
Yeah, there are two well, one is no longer a pub, but there are a couple of locations. In fact, one has just reopened, which I know you've been and visited recently. Myself and a friend went in recently as well, and the new occupants had not had any current experiences, but they'd just moved in.
Yeah,
so we'll
this
see
time,
what happens.
the energy's got to build back up.
Time will tell on that one.
Yeah. I'm intrigued. I keep popping in, so we'll see. Thank you, Liah. What about you, Pamela?
Well, 2026 might prove interesting. I'm definitely going to be available for spiritual reading. So anybody who wants communication with their loved ones and other spiritual beings, they can get in touch. And I'm really hesitating now, James, because it looks like I might be getting myself a little shop.
Oh, amazing.
So a little shop in Scarborough to do my readings from, sell all things for those who want to develop their mediumship and their skill set, and book exchange, all things paranormal, occult, all of that kind of stuff. So I want to do a book exchange or have the availability for anyone who's setting out on their journey or at any point on their journey for their development, to offer support, guidance, anything that I can offer is kind of what my plan is. And yeah, you didn't know that, James, until I just told you.
No, that's exciting. So
I would love it to take off, and I would love to be able to give, what am I now, 30, coming up 35 years in spiritualism, but been experienced at working with the spirit world since I was little. Share that with others and support them on their journey. I want to be offering awareness classes and development classes, open circle, things like that, so that people can do lots of spiritual communication and understand it, so that they have a real understanding, a deep knowledge of spiritual communication.
No, amazing. Now, how can people get in touch with
you? I don't really know at the minute. Can they drop you a message to pass on to me, and then once
we can definitely do that.
Set up,
yeah,
is that okay?
We can do that without doubt.
Just simply because, apart from a phone number, I don't think I have anything apart from my Facebook page, and I know that lots of people today don't even use Facebook anymore. So, I'm not quite set up in any way to do that quite yet.
So watch this space. And if you want to get in touch with Pamela, you can use the 14newspodcast@gmail.com email address, and I will pass it on.
I'll probably give my email address.
Yeah, chuck in your email.
Yeah, it's blackwidowghosttours@gmail.com.
Wonderful. Well, thank you both for joining me on the show, and wishing you much love, happiness, and peace for 2026.
And you, thanks very much.
Thank you, James. And you, Liah.
And you, Pamela. Nice to see you again.
You too.